welcome to our third day of Summer Naturalist Camp. How many are excited to be here? Oh, the old Muppets! Settle, relax. All right, there are the notes. Less than the past 2 days. We'll let you get started and then we'll get into birds. Alright, so how do you guys do? Happy? No? Sad? Corbin's totally disappointed that the notes are so much less than they were the other day. I know it's your favorite part of every day. Today we're studying the class aves. Aves is the Latin plural of avis. Avis means bird. So, when you go home to your bird feeder today and you see a bird on it, you go, Mom, look at the avis. And they're like, huh? And then if you see multiple birds on it, you go, Dad, look at the AVs. Of all the terrestrial vertebrates, birds are the least studied, the least melodious, and by far what most people think the least beautiful. Yep. No, they're the most studied. Hey, I run the Conservancy. I love it. I love education. Everybody says, we love education. Support education. Yeah, when it comes down to making budget, no one supports education. But you know what they do support? Birds. So if I ever became the director of another nonprofit, or if I formed my own nonprofit, you know what would be focused on? Birds! Everybody loves birds. You go up to Wall Street and you can get all these people or these corporate tycoons sitting there and stockbrokers and everything else. And guess where they give most of their money if it's in conservation? They give it to birds. And they like to be life listers. There's 8,600 species. You can get some of the richest people on this planet. They're so into birds. You can do eco tours and bring them to the most obscure places just so that they can check it off their list. Because they're what they call life listers. And they want to be able to see every bird species that there is to be seen. Some of them are actually pretty good naturalists. Some of them are just simply checking off the list. But either way, birds are the most studied, the most beloved. And honestly, you know what the #1 outdoor recreational activity is? Now, in this country and around the world, birding is the #1 recreational sport there is on this planet. So we say, why would that be? Well, it's Kingdom Animalia. I know your favorite, least favorite, Kingdom. I know Monera, Corbin. We're going to get to the blue-green algae if we have time. Not quite today. Phylum Chordata, which we know has the notochord, but the subphylum Vertebrata has the backbones, yes, and it does have a spinal cord, central nerve cord that runs down. Class Aves birds. So, why do people love birds so much? I think it's because birds just sit there, like, closely like sloths, and they don't move, and they just can't, like, go through the air. Or wait, maybe people like birds because they fly. Crawl. I like your humor, Corbin. They fly. And let's face it, who has not thought once in their life, twice in their life, 3 times in their life, wish they could fly? I have a dog. Name's Cassie. She thinks and wishes she was a bird. We bring her to the coast. She runs down the entire beach like jumping up at the shorebird. Just trying to fly. If you let her out the door and there's the whatever sparrows or whatever may be out on the ground and they fly up, she's like, oh, oh. And then she stares up at the sky and watches the birds, the turkey vultures and everything else. I mean, she's utterly obsessed with birds. She wishes she was a bird. And let's face it, that's why they're so fascinating. And how do they fly? That's really what today's all about. Birds. They did evolve from a line of reptiles, and you can sort of still see that, or very much still see it, in their integument, their skin. And what comes from their skin? What beautiful epidermal feature? What do we call this?
Feathers.
A feather. Feathers are remarkable. A feather, in order to be successful, it has to have strength. It also has to be, I would let you hold this, Corbin, but it's, oh my, I can barely. Let me try to get it to you. It's very heavy. Are feathers heavy?
No.
Extremely light as a feather. Extremely light feathers. So they have to have strength, they have to be light, and they have to be durable. The bird, this comes from a wild turkey. The wild turkey has a flight feather like this on it right now. We call it a primary. It's right out there where the wing goes. That's what makes the noise when the turkey takes off. That feather has to last until probably with the turkey about August-ish, mid-August. And then you know what it'll do? It'll lose a feather on each side of its body. 1, 2, 3, 2, same feather on each wing, until all the feathers are
Gone.
there. Loses one, new one grows in there. Same on that side, then it goes to the next primary, the next primary. So it can still fly during this process, but it constantly is losing its feathers until every single feather is molted and replaced. Gone, and they got a brand new one. And then it has to keep that feather for a whole year. So if you imagine a turkey, a very big bird, it likes to perch in evergreens at night. You imagine it coming up and trying to land into the pine tree. As it comes in, its wings are so big, all of a sudden, it hits a branch. So, what's it do now? Oh, this is the first day with that new feather. Oh, I'm in trouble. The durability, the feathers can be preened with both its talons and its beak. And you can take the feather and put it right back together. Now this feather, I've been using as demonstrations for probably 6, 7 years at this point. It fell off the turkey after it was already 1 year old. So it's at least 8 years old. And it can still be put back together. Super durable, super light, super strong. And you say, how does it do it? Well, if you imagine this feather, this is called the vein, the shaft. On the vein, if I pull these apart, each one of these separate is called barbs. So let's say there's 1,000 barbs on this vein. If you pull apart each barb, which I'm going to turn on the microscope in a second, you will see that each barb looks like a miniature feather. And on each barb, there's 1,000 barbules. Those barbules attach to the barbules next to the barb that's next to it, and it's like instant Velcro. I wish I could go back in time 50 years. I would have become Velcro Man! I would have invented Velcro. You have lived with Velcro your whole life. When I was a kid, guess what there wasn't? There wasn't Velcro. Can you believe it? The bird is really the first of the Velcro. But let's take a look at this feather. Get off this. As you look, you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 barbs, and look at the edges. The edge, first barb, and 7th. You see how there's those little projections? That are your barbules. And so you can imagine, I'm just saying 1,000 because it's easier math, but if there's 1,000 barbs, and on each one 1,000 barbules, how many barbules are on one vein of one feather?
1,000 times 1,000.
Which would be what? 6 zeros. 1 million. Very good. That's your math for today. 1 million. There's probably more than that. Here, you want to go? Should we go in closer?
There's more than 1,000 though.
There, yeah, I would say there are.
It's more like a million. So it'd be a million times a million.
Well, I wouldn't say a million, but
At least a few thousand.
isn't that so cool?
Maybe 10,000.
So that's how it gets both its strength, its, what is the other word? Strength, lightness, and durability. Yes, wonderful feathers. So that, and I think our microscope looked better, but this is actually even closer up, where you can see the varbules detaching to each other. It's kind of cool. Isn't that cool? Fascinating. So that's the first adaptation for flight. Feathers. Now, have you ever been in a plane, Corbin? Caveman?
We've been on planes a bunch of times.
Been on planes a bunch of times. So when you're on a plane, you put all the luggage and the people out on the tips of the wings, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Of course.
And you keep the center like super light, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, because that's the best way to obtain flight. So when you look at a bird, you got to start thinking about the skeleton. If you want to achieve flight, you can't have weight. Like, big bone here, isn't it? Biggest bone in your body, weighs a lot. Big bone man.
Yeah.
Does it look like I have everything in the center of myself? You think I'm going to be able to fly?
No. Of course.
I could,
Yes.
well, yeah, you could jump and then go splat. So you start looking at the skeleton system and you start thinking, well, first we need lightness. All the bones on the bird, unlike what are on us being solid, the bird's bones are like bicycle spokes. They are hollow with all sorts of bone connections, if you look at it. Stiffening the bone with basically a series of struts. Cool, eh? So if you have a hollow bone, is that lighter than a solid bone? Yes. Then you start looking at the skeletal system, and I want everybody, take your foot right here. Point your toe, pull back, point your toe, pull back, point your toe. So when you look at a bird and it's sitting there perched, its knees backwards.
It's a teal.
When you look at a bird, like in all evolution, if he came from a reptile leg, can you just take something that evolved with the knee going this way and just have it reverse? No. But what can happen over time is the tarses, like your toes, and then the elongation of the ankle bone. So the ankle bone, basically, you imagine if you were a bird, would be elongated. And so where you see this juncture, do your feet again. Is that bending the same way a bird leg is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is right, that's the ankle bone going around then that first joint. You were right, Corbin. And then your tibula and fibula on a bird is elongated and comes basically right up to where the rib cage is. And then when you look at this, your biggest, thickest, heaviest bone almost looks like it's part of the rib. It's way up in its body. That allows all of that bone mass, but also the heaviest thing. What is the bone for? What attaches to bone? What the bone gives something structure so that it can be useful. What does it give structure to? Number 3, what's that crazy word? Muscles! So the bones are simply places to attach the muscle. The bones give the rigidity to the structure. So if you bring all the bones up to the center of the body, what do you bring all up to?
Muscles.
All the muscles that have all the weight. Ultimately seen with how their wings work. And the most massive of the muscles of the birds, of course, are the muscles to use for flight. So, again, Forrest is so willing to have surgeries. We are going to have surgery on him. And everybody, feel right here your sternum. Your sternum's flat, isn't it? If you were a bird, that would not work very well because you can only attach so much muscle to that flat sternum. The birds, most of them that achieve flight, have what's called a keeled sternum. Basically a big old ridge. So we're going to add bone to Forrest to make a big old ridge. We're going to reform his bones so that they all come up towards the center of his body. Then we're going to be able to add a ton more muscle mass to that system. And as you look at the wing, all the muscles coming in here, and then you come up around what's like our shoulder joint, and that's the red muscle. You need less muscle in a bird to bring up your wing. What do you need to get it flight? You need more muscle to bring your wing down to create the lift. So look at all that added muscle that they can have on that keeled sternum, allowing all the mass to be centralized, a lot more muscle coming around one joint, and then attaching to the bottom of it, allowing them to get that lift and achieve that flight. Then, of course, if you got all of your muscles centralized, and if you bring everything and the weight mainly to the center of the body, and then you have the wings and very light bones and these beautiful feathers that are adapted to help achieve flight, that have the strength, have the lightness and the durability, then you have one problem. If you're still a reptile, or if you're coming from a line of vertebrates that generally do not consume the mass amount of energy in order to achieve flight, which takes a ton of energy. It takes a lot of jet fuel to get in that jet and fly to New York, doesn't it? Tons! So you need a digestive system that is running on super speed in order to actually get and consume enough calories to achieve flight. And not only does your digestive system need to run on super speed, but your circulatory system, meaning your heart. And so, Caroline, chickadee, that bird's heart beats when it's active about 1,000 times per minute. If your heart beat that fast, it'd be all over. So their heart is beating super fast, and in order to have all that happening, we already talked about it yesterday, in order to burn energy, what do you need? Oxygen. You need air, so they have to have a super efficient respiratory system, which this is one of the coolest pictures I show you all week. That purple is the actual bird lungs. When you look at the blue sacs, that's a sac system. If you are a bird, in order to inhale and exhale, you actually, to get everything filled, takes 2 breaths. The first breath fills all the sacs. The second breath of your life pushes the air in the sacs over the lungs, while new air comes in and fills the sacs. Meaning, once you get those first 2 breaths, for the rest of your life as a bird, you are getting fresh oxygen pouring over your lungs, whether you're inhaling or whether you're exhaling. Constantly bathing the lungs in oxygen. Louis Armstrong was famous for playing the trumpet, and he could play it and he could breathe as he played. What's it, the Killarney in Australia, where they walk up mountains and well, not that there's big mountains in Australia, but they actually breathe as they play. That's like one of they can just constantly play it. Well, that's about as good as we can do as humans, which I used to try to do as a kid. I never even came close. Birds, they don't have to even do it, because every inhale brings fresh oxygen in their lungs, every exhale brings fresh oxygen in their lungs. And they'll even, because they have hollow bone systems, some of them will even store oxygen within that to keep those fires burning. And of course then, we got Forrest all equipped. We got him new lungs, we got him air sacs, we got all his muscle system, skeletal system, everything right where it needs to be to centralize his weight. We got a hugely fast digestive system now. We really ramped up his circulatory system. He's all set. We're gonna now let him fly through the woods. Oop. We made one mistake. We forgot about his nervous system. If we had him all ramped up and ready to go and we didn't do something about how he processes information, especially through his sight, he would be in trouble.
Wow.
Because, as soon as you want to fly into the woods, boom, ooh, hit that tree. Because his eyes are not capable of taking in the information fast enough and acuity, detail enough to avoid the tree branches. You ever look at a bird flying through the woods or flying through little bushes like the sparrows so often do, and they don't hit anything? I mean, it really is completely remarkable. I mean, you can think of the birds of prey way back over here looking down and finding the mouse, which is crazy too, but I just find flight through the woods and the brush is just, it's amazing how fast that they process the information. Okay, so we got it all done. Forrest is now ready for his first flight. Now, there's one last thing I just wanted to show you about birds, and then we're going to go to the books. At night, birds perch and they sleep. I got a chin-up bar downstairs in the closet. We're going to all go down there, and I'm going to have you hold on and fall asleep. What would happen as soon as you fell asleep?
You fall.
You fall. Ever have a hand on like this? You're driving in the car and you fall asleep, and then what happens to your hand? And you hit the window?
Yeah.
So, how do the birds do it? As they're holding on to the branch at night, why don't we all go out there at 9:30 at night? They're sleeping and wait for the big bird drop. And they all fall out of the trees. It turns out, if you take a tendon to what would be where our fibula and tibula are, which now is way up here, and you attach it, and it comes around that ankle joint down to the tarses, if I have 2 points, what's the shortest distance to those 2 points? Straight line. So if you take a tendon with no muscle, there's no muscle on their ankle, have it come around this joint, right out to each of its tarses, each of its toes, the shortest distance to that is the straight line. Now, if it bends its joint, the distance is longer. So, the shortest distance is when its tarses are open. But if you bend that joint, something has to happen because tendons are not like rubber bands. They do not stretch. So what needs to happen? The tarsus close. Thus, the bird flies in with its legs straightened. As soon as it lands on the perch and it bends that joint, it's locked. And until it decides to open that joint, guess what? It's going nowhere. So it just sits there squat and falls asleep. Birds of prey are the ultimate. They come in and watch this. Red-tailed hawks, as you're driving on the thruway, all of a sudden you'll see it fly off a power line, and it has its legs out, stretched. And as soon as it grabs the rodent, it bends the joint, and guess what happens? Locked. I have a barred owl wing. This barred owl came from roadkill. I had found it on my way to teach at a school, and it was still warm. It had just been killed. I went to the school really early in the morning, and somehow it got hit just before it was done hunting for the night. I had it still so warm and had just been alive that I could stretch the legs and the talons went, and I could bend the leg. And I had this intern, his name was Joseph, and I had this whole group of teachers were kind of like, oh my God, here's a dead bird. What are you doing? And I had him put out his finger, and I opened the leg, and he put his finger there, and guess what I did? I closed the leg, and guess what I did? I said, Joseph, move your finger. Guess what he couldn't do?
Move his finger.
He couldn't get his finger out. And all of a sudden, he'd heard this lesson for like years of his life. And all of a sudden, he's like, uh-oh. And he had this mad panic look in his face. He's like, Michael. And I'm like, relax. And then I opened the leg, and he's like, and he kind of walks away from me. because you can't get out of it. I used to take care of a barred owl in North Carolina. His name was Omar. And once, when you first got on your hand, you get, okay, Omar, relax. Okay, relax. Open the leg a bit. Because it hurt. So, pretty remarkable. Last but not least, the birds. Now I'm going to shut this because you don't need to look at that. What I need you to do is look at this. Look at the very first page, which is really like page 3. Oh, it's page 2. Parts of the bird. We got the crown. We're just going to go down. We got the beak. We got the chin. We got the breast. You got the belly. You got the tarses, the leg colors, from the ankle joint down. You have outer tail feathers, the middle tail feathers. You have the rump. You have wings, wing bars. You have the nape, which is just on the back side of the head. And then you have the back. And then you go back up, you have the eyebrow, which goes above the eye ring, which goes around the eye, and then of course you got
the eye line.
Yeah, and the ear patches. So, what we are going to do, when you are first learning birds, a lot of people, you'll take a look at it through the binoculars, and you'll then look at the book. And what will happen? You'll go back to the binoculars, and bird is gone. So, in order for us to get started with birds, we are just going to look at a few simple things. I find that if you look at beak, color and shape, tarsi, color, that's the leg from the ankle joint down. Does it have outer tail feathers that are different? Does it have any conspicuous breast mark? Any conspicuous eye line? And then, if you have time, you can start thinking wing bars. But if you start thinking of a bird like that, and you just and you get like 3 to 5 of those characteristics in your head that you can remember, then when the bird flies away, then you look at the book. And you can be like, and we'll do it. So if you can, technical difficulties, I don't know why that's still on. Let's just do something easy at the moment. Let's do, well, maybe not too easy. Go to page 91. 91. On 90, there's the cedar waxwing. We're going to be looking at page 91, which is opposite.
Okay.
All right. Tell me when you get, don't stare yet. No, close your book as soon as you get it. Just keep your finger there. Keep your finger there. We are on the 91, we're going to go with the top bird. Go. 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close the book. Close. What color were the tarses? Raise your hand.
Black.
Black. Right. What color and shape was the beak?
It was long and skinny and black.
And black. Did it have an eyebrow?
Yes.
What color was that?
Which was gray.
All right, we'll go with that. I didn't mention this before. Color of the eye. Did you notice any eye color?
Red.
Red. All right, open the book back to 91. Take a look at it. What bird was it?
Red-eyed vireo.
Red-eyed vireo. Yes. So you can see just by those little marks, we were able to determine that it was red-eyed vireo. You know why I started with a red-eyed vireo? It sings, it's a sing-songer like a robin, but it sings, here I am, where are you? Here I am, where are you? All day long, the male will. Even when it's 99 degrees and all self-respecting birds are off, resting, still feeding, but not singing, this bird is still, here I am, where are you? About the only time it's not singing is when it's flying. You know what the most numerous bird in all of North America used to be? As far as songbirds? The red-eyed vireo. Not anymore because it's a migrant, and migration has really hurt a lot of our migratory birds. Well, 30 years ago when I first became a naturalist, red-eyed vireos littered the woods everywhere. We always went, here I am, where are you? Here I am, where are you? You know what the most numerous bird is now in the world? Well, let's just go North America. What's the most numerous bird? Think.
Robin.
No.
Red.
No. Nope. All good guesses.
Chickadee?
Nope. Nope. You want me to tell you?
Vulture.
Nope.
Chicken.
Chicken. You got it. It's the chicken. That's the most numerous bird. Very good, Caleb. All right, just go to 93. We'll just flip one page.
Okay.
All right.
Look at it.
No, don't look at it yet. Ready? We're going to go with the very top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close the book. What color was the beak?
Black. Black.
But did it have any unique thing on its crown?
It was yellow.
Yellow patch. Did it have anything on its rump?
I didn't look.
Okay, what color were its tarses?
Black.
Black. Did it have any markings on its breast to wing? Scapular. Here, open it up. Take a look. It had a little yellow. Did anybody notice the white eyebrow when you first looked at it?
Oh no, I didn't.
Did you, Corbin? Yeah.
It's called the yellow lump.
That's, yeah, the yellow rump wobbler. As far as migration, and I don't want this to be completely depressing, but the migrations the past couple of years, due to a lot of different factors, has not been great. But this used to be one of the most common ones we'd see over at the North Fork wetlands near the Boy Scout camp. And the last migration walk we did, which I guess was 2019, because we didn't get to do one this year, we saw like one. And this used to be like, oh, another yellow rump, oh, another yellow rump. So, times are changing. Hard to teach wobblers when there's not any to show you. All right, let's go to, page 103. 103.
Yeah.
All right, don't look yet. When you get to 103, let me know. Are we all there?
Yeah.
Ready, go. 1,
What?
2, oh, close book. Let's go with the bottom. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close the book. What color and shape was the beak?
Long, skinny, and black.
Long, skinny, and black. Anything unique about the eye?
It was like silverish.
Anything unique about the head?
It was blue.
Anything unique about the tail? Here, take a look at it. Because you have a brown-headed cowbird, a brewer's cow, and a common grackle. The grackle is a native bird, kind of neat. It's usually the first one that marks spring's coming by coming near bird feeder.
Yeah, but that's
Brewers, blackbirds, and our.
Do you? Awesome.
Their last name is Bird also.
Okay, not brown-headed cowbirds. Brown-headed cowbirds, they're wore a very uniquely specialized bird that followed around bison herds. There used to be millions of bison that roamed the Great Plains of the United States. Well, because they followed the bison, bison never stayed put and the herds kept moving. So the brown-headed cowbirds evolved to take their eggs and put them in any bird's nest.
Oh yeah.
And then they would just keep moving on. And so whatever nest they laid that egg in, and this egg, that parent wound up raising a cowbird. Not a big deal. Then we slaughtered all the bison and we put cattle in fenced areas all across the landscape of North America. Guess what happened? The cowbirds no longer followed bison because there were no bison. Cows don't need to be followed, so they can just stay in one place. And all of a sudden, the brown-headed cowbirds invaded the east. And now, when you go back to the yellow rump wobbler and some of the other threatened birds, it's because cowbirds, a native species, are now really invasive and a management problem because they're parasitizing so many birds at this point that they're out competing for the young in the, let's say, a wood thrush's nest, and there's not as many wood thrush birdlings, nestlings surviving, which is also leading to plummeting. So there's now like natural areas and states having to deal with what do you do with brown-headed cowbirds. We have one that hangs around our bird feeder. It's a female, and I'm telling you from watching it for 21 years, I mean, it's not the same female, but they are the sneakiest little things. Their head's not as brown. This is a male that you're looking at, and they just sit there. And you can they just watch other birds, and no bird notices them. And that's how they find where the bird's going to nest. And then they follow it and drop an egg, and they go back and they just pick a conspicuous spot, but they don't move. They're like these tiny.
So is it easy for the brown-headed cowbirds to just lay eggs?
Well, let's say a normal bird lays 5 to 7 eggs. They do the same thing, but they just lay them in 5 different birds' nests. But not their own. All right, with that being said, we know our birds, we got our books. We're gonna grab our binoculars, get your water. Again, like always, bring your first snack, your second snack, and bring your lunch. We're today probably gonna end up, because it's so hot, near water, so bring your water shoes. If they're comfortable, you can wear them the whole day. If they're not, we don't want blisters, so bring your water shoes separately in your bag. Go!